Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Shit You Wish Your Building Did, a podcast where we take an unvarnished look at the technology in our buildings, the good and the bad. In this episode, I'm talking to Warren Houghton, a security consultant who specializes in everything from covert physical entry to exploiting technology controls. He's an expert in hardware hacking and social engineering, and we're going to dive into how the vulnerabilities in both physical and cybersecurity affect us all, whether it's your office, hotel, or even at home. And if you like the episode, there's a button specifically for that down below. Please click it. So yeah, let's jump right in. Warren, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, James.
You are very welcome, of course. And I don't know. I think it's probably a good place to start today is just for you to tell us exactly what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a security consultant or penetration tester, work for PTP, and I specialise in covert entry into buildings. I break into a lot of buildings, a lot of banks, and I'm generally quite a sneaky guy.
It's very nice for you to admit that. I mean, look, it's a fascinating job. Obviously, we're gonna dig into that a little bit more, but maybe I guess people are a bit intrigued, right? Like it's not you don't meet people who do this kind of job every day. So tell us what does breaking into a bank actually involve now in 2024?
It's very different. Like I specialise in access control systems. You'll probably see this office is full of them, and that's your cards. That's my thing. That's what I enjoy. And the way I break into banks is I will clone your card and I will just open your door for you, for me, basically, sorry. That's how I get into banks. There are many different ways, though. People social engineer their way in by tailgating or, lying to people and convincing them to get in. But there's many different ways to get in the bank, which is quite terrifying. But I'm generally still amazed that this is even a job.
So you mentioned badges, right? So I guess some people are going to be aware of what that is, access control system. But for anyone who perhaps doesn't work in an office or it's that kind of environment, what is a badge?
So it's just usually the thing people hang around their necks, and they'll boop it on a reader. It's on the outside of a door, similar to like a hotel door. When you're at like one of the big chains and you scan your hotel card to open the door. It's exactly the same as that, realistically, but it's how a lot of people manage access into their buildings. It's how they hand these out to all their staff members and grant them access, and you just walk around with them. So yeah. Okay,
and then the job you're doing, someone is, of course, telling you to do it, right? Like you're doing it.
Yeah, it's all within the confines of the law. Like I'm not,
So the bank do it to essentially test their security protocols and things like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there's not usually a driving force for it, for physical, unlike cyber, which is something we're trying to change. But it's usually to get an idea of how secure they are. To make sure that the bad guys can't walk into the bank. I'm not a bad guy, as much as I may try and act like one sometimes. I don't want people getting into these banks, so I'd rather do it myself to prove how they can do it.
So how do you go about doing this then? Like specifically, the bank comes to you, you're tasked with this job to try and do this. Then how do you go about it?
So it usually starts with open source intelligence gathering. It's basically just advanced Googling. I'll look all over the internet. I'll see what your building looks like, what people have put over social media, that sort of thing. Then I'll also go to your building physically, and I'll be like, okay, what does it look like? How are people walking in and out? What do they do? Like, what doors are they using? And as an attacker, I'll try and emulate everything I see as a sort of someone who wants to breach your building. These buildings are made to let people in. They're not Fort Knox generally. So I will emulate a member of staff. And I just need to know as much information as possible about your members of staff.
Okay. And you said before, like a lot of people wear these badges around their neck, right? quite common, I think, in the office. But then, I mean, you can actually clone that badge, right? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are some you can't, but there are most of them you can. So it's interesting for me, at least as a techie guy. It effectively, you think as this card is your password to the door, and your card is effectively your password manager, if you will. How that password to the door is secured is how I would attack them. What I need to break in order to clone your card. Where effectively, I will walk past you at little shop around the corner. You may not have taken off your badge. A lot of people don't. And I will read your badge with my reader. You know, I'll effectively turn the access control system back on itself, and I will be in control of the reader, and I will read your card.
Okay. So you've reversed engineered some bit of hardware there to be able to do that.
So a lot of them are public. Like don't get me wrong. Like I've done some things, but it's not my knowledge that I'm exploiting. So I don't want to step on any shoulders of giants, or I'm on the shoulders of giants around this industry, obviously. But it's you can get an off-the-shelf bit of equipment and just strap it with a small computer, like we're talking like this big, and a battery, and I can put it in a bag and walk next to you in the street effectively.
Okay, so you don't even have to have it around your neck. It could be in your pocket.
No, like the reader. I mean, these readers are quite big. Like some of the readers I use are like, well, the cameras, but it's about a foot square. The reader I would use, and I would be able to read your card at about a foot range.
Wow. Okay. And I suppose there'll be people out there who are thinking, well, you know, I don't work in an office, doesn't really apply to me, but that's not really the case, is it?
Not really. So it's the same technology as any credit card or any hotel. It's all what is classed as RFID. It's an overarching thing. And if you use a hotel, I dare say, use contactless credit cards, you know, it's all using the same technology. There are varying levels of security. Obviously, credit cards are generally pretty good. There are things you can do against them, but they're pretty good. But hotels are not. So generally, you know,
like, be careful, I suppose, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's be careful what you're using and understand what you've got. It's not all about breaking and entering to a bank. Sometimes it's just breaking and entering to, like I say, like a hotel, or I can get access to your room or something like that. So it's everyone I feel is affected by these sort of attacks. It's just how you use them, or what you do in your day-to-day life. And
yeah, and I mean, so in that sort of scenario, let's say you're staying in a hotel, you have one of every. I mean, most people will have had one of those key cards. You keep it in your wallet, whatever. Then you go and open the door. But then, I mean, you're basically saying that a lot of people could. You're walking around with that outside. You keep that on, like people could read it. They can get access to your room.
That's it. So hotel keys can take a little bit more time. It's not an instant process. Like, luckily, there are some cases where it is, but generally it's not an instant process to clone a hotel key, and you need a little bit of an extended time to do so. So don't be too scared. But there are some attacks that you can do against hotels. I've yet to see a hotel key that I couldn't clone in one way or another. And it's how you also get new keys. Like, so if you go to a hotel, and you lose your card, how are you getting a new key? Like, do you go to the front desk and say hello and give them your ID, prove who you are, or do you just say I'm room 201 and they give you a key? There are many attacks against it. It's not all about just cloning. It's also the social engineering aspect on how you get access to it. Right.
Yeah. Of course, it's not just technology, as you mentioned, social engineering, and we can come on to that a little bit as well. And there are some specific, I mean, we're not making this up, right? There are specific examples of where their hotels have been compromised, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I think roughly about 6 months ago, maybe a year, there was a large hotel key chain that was compromised. I think this year at DEF CON they did a talk on it. It's all out in the open now, whereby effectively, if you got access to one key in that hotel, because there was a unique bit on that key that was for that hotel, you could make a key for any door and open any door. So all you need to do is stay at the hotel or get access to a key of some kind, and you can open any door you want in a hotel. Now, luckily, that's been patched.
Okay, good.
So that has been patched, but I think as of March this year, I think it was only 36% of what it says on their website. 36% of those locks have been patched. So that this attack is still out there, but yeah, it's an interesting point.
They're taking steps to try and patch that.
Yeah. It's a long road, and I think by all accounts it's about a 2-year disclosure process between the researchers and this company to try and limit the impact, because we don't want people just stealing everyone's suitcases.
Right, and you mentioned sort of DEF CON. So that's for those that don't know, right? Like it's a conference for white hat hackers.
Yeah, so it's generally white hat hackers, but I imagine some nefarious guys go there as well. It's a huge conference in Las Vegas once a year. I haven't had the pleasure of going myself, but there is always lots of talks and some interesting stuff that gets revealed at DEF CON.
Yeah, and people then show the research, what they've been working on.
Precisely.
Okay, we
precisely.
found this issue. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I also, again, I think something that's going to apply to more broadly, right? Of course, smart home, and I mean, smart locks, smart home technology. I mean, what's your opinion there? Like, what have you you've seen there, and what's the kind of like standard of security around those devices?
Yeah, so it's an interesting space. There's some very good manufacturers, and there's some not so good manufacturers, like everything. There are good things and bad things. It's how I always put it. I don't have them in my house, if that makes anyone feel any better or worse. So it's if you can open your door really easily by saying keyword, so I don't annoy any of the listeners, open door. How easy can someone else do it? Is it as simple as that? Is there any voice matching? Can I just call through your window or call through your letterbox and say open the door? Like, I don't know. There's an interesting point, and I wouldn't pretend to be an expert on the home space, but I always think if you add a lot of technology onto something that doesn't necessarily need it, you're opening up yourself for issues.
Right. Okay. I mean, in that scenario you described, where you've set up some automation with your speaker, which you can talk to, and it then you can access various devices or play music or even open the door, right? But if you can, as you said, if you can do it, someone can stand outside and say the same thing. Yeah,
precisely. I just I wouldn't trust it personally. I'm not saying it's insecure. Maybe there is a lot of security around it, and there's an awful lot of testing that we at PTP do on it. But how secure can it be? If it's some form of technology, it's how secure can it be forever?
Right, because I mean, ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, but anything can be hacked, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's just a matter of time. Like, things that are secure 20 years ago are no longer considered secure. Like, there's a reason for that. So everything just takes a matter of time and persistence by researchers. Lots of coffee, it seems. So eventually everything will be hacked, and it's how you manage that risk, even as an individual, not necessarily just an organization or anything like that. It's if you open yourself up to having all these things and all these sort of smart home devices, maybe eventually it's going to be bad, and you're going to be open up to a lot of risk. You can't rule it out.
So do you have any like advice, or like, what are the specific things people need to be aware of to like maintain their safety and I guess prevent also social engineering?
Yeah. So it depends on what the risk is for you personally. If you're part of a large organization and you go in every day and you've got your badge, be aware of what you're doing. Be aware of where you're wearing your badge. I see it. You only need to walk down a street in Liverpool Street and you'll see hundreds of people wearing a badge. Like, that's a bad thing. and you're effectively wearing your password in public, for want of a better term, is be aware of what you're doing, what you're revealing in public, and try and manage that. If you're not a worker at an office and you like maybe just to work from home and stuff like that, be aware of what risk is open to you. Be aware of what you've put on your door. Be aware of how you get in and get out. Just generally don't live life blindly. I would suggest.
And I suppose that sort of advice of not showing things in public also applies to social media as well, right?
Oh, 100%. Like we see it all the time. Everyone from putting up the first day of a new job and they put up a picture of their badge to, oh, I've just moved into a house, here's my keys. Now a key is just a password to your door in a different form, right? It's just effectively wiggly lines. If I can make that key look the same, it'll also open your door. Now I have your key and your address because you've put it on social media. It's just being very aware of what you're revealing in public and what the impact of that could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. You don't think of your key as a password, but effectively, that's exactly what it is, of course.
Yes, exactly. And like you can cut out a key out of a strong bit of plastic and it'll open the door. And I just need to line up the right lines and it'll open. It's simple as that.
You mentioned, and so you talked about risk. Is there anything else people need to have, I mean, in the back of their mind about how to manage security?
So what have I put on my notes? My word. Don't try not to live in fear. Like, okay, the world is quite a scary place, and some of the stories are, I could tell you are quite scary when you talk about security. It's not just try and manage that. It's not just try not to live in fear, but try to be aware of what you're doing. Is more my overarching advice to anyone that's listening to this. If you're part of an organization, be aware that everyone is part of the security of that organization. Be you a security guard or a PA, or it doesn't matter. You all have some form of responsibility for the organization's security. And just how could this go wrong for me is usually the question I ask myself. If I use something, if I have like speakers everywhere, or I put a smart lock in or something, how could this go wrong if it was going to go wrong? Would be what I ask myself a lot. Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of technology that's going into, I mean, we just take smart home. Okay. We've covered sort of locks. We talked about speakers, but obviously there's video cameras and things like that. I mean, is there like what things that you would consider less secure types of technology than other types? I mean, you mentioned companies, of course. So, there's plenty of research out there, I'm sure, online about like, okay, who are the reputable companies? Who are the ones that, and like general consumer rule of thumb, right? If it's cheap, it's probably cheap for a reason.
Yeah, precisely. If you're buying a smart speaker off of Wish or something like that, it's probably not going to be the best quality security-wise. But if you, like you say, if you're looking at all these companies, then there are some really good companies out there that are doing some incredible work security-wise. I wouldn't say there's any one particular piece of technology I would say is more secure than the rest. People like to say a physical lock is more secure, but then all you need to do is look on YouTube, and there's some very good lock pickers out there that always get through them. So would they consider them secure? It's what's secure for you, effectively. And I would suggest do a little bit of research and just Google it. Just Google, is this good on, and you'll generally get the answer because researchers have probably tore it apart.
Okay. How do they, whatever, doorbells, access locks, generally connected by Wi-Fi, are they also updating then? I mean, how do they actually, the companies, manage that process of security? Are they constantly trying to look for flaws in?
So a lot of companies, like the big ones, they all do pen tests or penetration tests. It's effectively where they hire a company like I work for, and we break it for them, and we tell them how we broke it, and then they go and fix it, and they patch it. So when you get a notification on your phone saying update this, update that, it's usually off the back of either a researcher independently or a pen tester of some kind saying it's either good or bad. How they do that with doorbells and speakers, like you say, it's all connected over the Wi-Fi, and they will just push an update. And they do that automatically, which is quite handy because I know a lot of people just sort of ignore updates. Don't ignore updates. They're there for a reason. But your speaker, your doorbell will generally be automatically updated for you, which is handy.
Okay. But that's just the software, right? I mean, hardware as well, that's a different thing, isn't it?
That's a completely different beast. Yes. So there are like hardware revisions, so they changes in hardware. You'll see it all the time. Where especially in like cars, they'll change one little bit that it's now considered insecure, and they'll change it, and they'll keep on playing out. The actual product itself doesn't change. It's just how it's made, or the actual pieces in it may change. But that happens. You'll see it. Well, you don't see it effectively. Like it just happens, and you still get the same speaker.
Okay, but you as a consumer, like you go out, you make the investment, you buy this piece of technology, you install it, it sits there happily for a few years. You're getting the updates, so the software is okay. But like eventually, right, as time goes on, it's becoming less and less secure as a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you
just have to accept as a consumer, this thing is not going to last for, or you should think about replacing it at some interval.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Like eventually everything gets old, right? It's like take security out of it. Eventually everything gets old and defunct. You look at, unless you're like a nice classic car, then obviously that's a very different story. But like it's eventually everything is replaced and everything becomes defunct. You look at the old Apple phones, iPhones, then there's a reason that they no longer get updated past a certain time. And there's a lot of speculation on Apple doing some interesting things, but like it's usually because there's some flaw and they can't fix it, so they can't then like support it anymore.
Yeah, I suppose though it kind of ties into people's also instinct of like thinking, well, they're doing it because they want to sell me a new phone, or they want to do it because they want to sell me a new thing, and like okay, so it kind of works for them as because you know the product gets replaced, they're gonna make more money. But so as a consumer, it kind of feels like you're getting a raw deal, but ultimately there are other things to consider, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Like you can never see behind the curtain on all these massive organizations, like unless you work there, obviously. So you can't say they're not doing that, but they're probably not. I don't know. It's a difficult one. I can't say yes or no. But what I know is if it gets too old and it becomes broken and they can't fix it, it's probably time to get a new one.
Yeah. Warren, thanks very much for your time. And
thank you for having me,
really
James.
interesting. You have a great, really interesting job. And good luck with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask you just one more question. Is there sort of one, from what we've discussed, one piece of advice that you want people to take away from the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, generally take note of what's happening around you, like in a very broad sense. Whether you're at a shop and there's somebody with a bag that's a little bit close to yours, you might be getting your card cloned. If you've put something on your door that you don't quite understand, just take note on what's happening around you in the world in a technology base. You don't need to understand it in a low down level. Just be aware.
Yeah, of your surroundings and what you're doing, what your actions are, because of course actions have consequences. Yeah.
Absolutely, James. Absolutely.
Warren, thanks a lot. And of course, thanks to everyone for listening. And you got this far, so I'm guessing you liked the conversation. If you did, then there's a button somewhere below us specifically for that purpose. Thanks very much.
Thank you.